Last night, President Barack Obama took to stage to talk about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, its cause, and what America needs to do moving forward. And Barack Obama is an eloquent speaker, no doubt, and an intelligent man. He's president, former president. But what he did last night was, I believe, beneath his station. It was a reiteration and a further justification of this mindset that we have seen that says that this is about Orange Man Bad. It's about Donald Trump. It's about the MAGA movement. And he justified that last night in a very, very eloquent way. Hear what I mean.
And so I've noticed that there's been some confusion, I think, around this lately. And frankly, coming from the White House and some of the other positions of authority that suggest, even before we had determined who the perpetrator of this evil act was, that somehow we're going to identify an enemy.
And let me stop right there. Yeah, we did identify the enemy with high degree of accuracy. Because at this point, with the rhetoric and the political division in this nation, it wasn't hard to figure out who likely did this and why. It wasn't like what was suggested by Matthew Dowd, that this was some kind of celebration gone awry. It was very obvious that this was a far leftist. And many of the things that motivate the far left were things that were motivating this case. And we have since found that was exactly true. And that's not because of Donald Trump, not because of MAGA. It's in fact because of the left, including President Barack Obama. You see, in this conversation, which I will go into detail later, but he identified the many, many, many issues that have caused this, the root problems that started in part in his presidency, in his run in 2008, when he said, we're going to transform America, and neglected to tell the American people, transform into what exactly? See, that's the first element, the first problem that we started to see. He, in his discussion last night, ignored things like when he, President Obama, elevated racial tensions in America with his beer summit, where he injected himself into local politics and increased the amount of racial tensions. And that was unnecessary. It was his administration under the IRS with Lois Lerner that was targeting conservatives because they were conservatives. It was his administration that failed so massively on issues like BLM and bringing BLM to a national recognition, which helped to lead to what we would see in 2020 and also increase the emphasis on Antifa. That came from the Obama administration. And there are many other issues we can speak about there. So to say that he and his administration and Democrats in general had nothing to do with any of this, that's a lie. That is a point-blank lie. They are part of the causation. It's the Department of Education under the Barack Obama administration and others that have been indoctrinating a generation of kids with things like critical race theory and others, these policies that have divided America. That's a leftist thing. They control the Department of Education. They control the media, like Hollywood, like much of social media and the news media. 80% of most of the news departments are leftist, and their language, calling the right Nazis and calling the right authoritarian and dictators, that has created this environment. Not President Trump reacting to that. And yes, President Trump has said the left is bad, they're socialists. Well, they admit being socialists. Ask Bernie Sanders, ask Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, ask Zoran Mandami. They admit they are socialists. So for the right to say you're a socialist isn't just name calling, it's actually describing and repeating what they have said themselves. And along with that socialism, that restructuring of America, of destroying the Constitution and the amendments, which many on the left do advocate for, well then you can't say when the right says this that that's somehow incendiary. That's what they say themselves. And when we see people on the right say that this is something that destroys our society, that it's a breakdown of our culture, that is an accurate description of what is happening and what the left have said themselves. It's not name calling. Saying that, oh, you're MAGA, you're a racist. Saying that if you're a Republican, you're a white supremacist. Saying that the president's a Nazi because, and even Charlie Kirk are Nazis because you don't like what they say, that is inflammatory. There is a demarked difference between the two. And trying to slippery slope and very nicely, very eloquently say that Orange Man Bad is the root of the problem for this is absolutely ignoring all of the history and all of the events that have been happening for decades now. President Obama is off base. I understand Democrats needed to pull out the heavy hitters to try and justify their latest justification or defense against the assassination of Charlie Kirk. That they, at their root, have been advocating and been guiding their most extreme adherents towards violence. Remember, it is the left that says that a microaggression is equivalent to violence, and therefore you can respond with violence to that microaggression. That is a leftist idea. That's not on the right, and there is no equivalent on the right to that idea. President Obama has failed the country in his very well spoken, very softly spoken attack that actually reinforces the division that has caused Charlie Kirk to be killed and to further divide America. And we need to call him out for that because it's wrong. And whether you like President Obama or not, whether you voted for him or not, does not change what he did last night. Really take time to break down what did he say. Because if you do, it's not beneficial to America. It's not lowering the temperature, it's actually turning it up. And that is something we should all have a discussion about, even though Barack Obama doesn't want you to do that. But I look forward to hearing what you have to say.